Rob Hersov. Well, Rob, I met or have engaged with now for quite some time. He was in the UK. He came back to South Africa. I remember that so well. You swam against the tide, and he has been incredibly active behind the scenes. He is a massive investor in South Africa. Cape Town's Lanseria is being developed by him. And he has worked as the right hand to Johann Rupert and to Rupert Murdoch. So here's an entrepreneur who comes from a long line of entrepreneurs. The Hersovs are synonymous in South Africa with mining and, of course, industry as well, Angloval. He's outspoken. He's one of the most popular commentators on BizNews. He's here to share with us his insights on South Africa. Please give him a warm round of applause.
Thank you, Alec, and thank you everyone for being here. I hate to be the purveyor of bad news, and I know everybody, even my wife said, can't you end on an optimistic note, which I'm still trying to think of. Maybe in 19 minutes' time I'll have that. But my message is very simple today. It's why did I come back to South Africa? Am I insane? That South Africa is not investable. It really isn't. From an international perspective, from an FDI perspective, international money would be insane to invest in South Africa right now. South Africa can be fixed easily, but never by the ANC. They're incompetent, they're kleptocrats, they're ineptocrats. We have idiots running the asylum. We really do. Lunatics running the asylum. And, the real heroes of South Africa are not the billionaires. They've gone. They've disappeared. They've left you in the lurch. The real heroes of South Africa that might save this country, that might generate economic growth, are the people in this room. It's you. It's been left to you to save this country. And then what I'd like to do is give some final comments and some final thoughts, just lessons learned along the way, which you may agree with and you may not agree with. So let's start with why the hell did I come back to South Africa? There are a number of reasons. One, my incredible parents, dad 95, mum late 80s, are alive. They're still ticking. They're in Johannesburg. They will not leave Johannesburg. They will not go to the Cape. They love it up there. And they believe in this country, but every day that I speak to them, they're increasingly frustrated. You read the newspaper, you go crazy. This morning I read that Duduzane Zuma, that horrific last name, that just brings anger into me, is trying to raise money for a presidential bid. That moron, that scion of that scumbag family, and I'm being rude to real scumbags, he wants to run for president. Horrific. The second reason is because I really wanted, my wife and kids to at least see, the last few years of this beautiful country. And I'll explain what I mean by that. All my businesses in London or overseas that I hadn't written off, the ones that had survived, were being well run. I was chairman, majority shareholder, and the CEOs were saying, Rob, please don't come into the office every day with a new idea because just let us hit budget. I also wanted to get out of the UK inheritance tax net, which happens after about 17 years in the UK. I lived 6 years in America and 25 years in Europe and the UK. And I missed South Africa. And that really is something. And I know when people leave this country forever and they cut the link and then they badmouth South Africa because that's the only way they can justify leaving this incredible country, they miss it. You come back, you go to Plett, you go to Hermanus, you go up the Natal coast, you go to the bush. There's nothing like it. You cannot live as well as I live in Cape Town anywhere else in the world. And I know that. But I gave and that's the torture of it all. But I gave my wife a commitment. She's a New Zealander. She's a doctor that's founded her own business in New York, which is growing rapidly. And I said to her, we'll come back. We're going to live extremely well. That because she'd been here on holiday before. The kids are going to love it. The younger kids, they're at school at Wet Pups and Herschel. It's going to be fantastic. I won't get involved in politics. I'll keep my head down. I'm not going to invest in any business in South Africa that doesn't have at least 90% of its revenue or revenue potential offshore. Well, I didn't do very well on that one from an airport point of view. And another announcement that Warren and I have today. And if I would leave this country in a second if certain things took place. If the tax situation became too onerous, if they take our guns away. I'm a firm believer in the Second Amendment, and there's a wonderful sentence in the American Second Amendment that says to protect the individual against the tyranny of the state. That's the justification for having a gun and a gun license in America, to protect the individual against the tyranny of the state. Now just think about that and the amazing presentation that Justin gave yesterday, where people took to their arms to protect their property because the state did nothing. So those are the, and the final reason was that if civil unrest, and this was 4.5 years ago, I said civil unrest is coming. And I said, we will leave if civil unrest is at a point where the police and the army are not incentivized to protect us. And that came very close in KZN a month ago. So remember, we returned in 2017 when Zuma and his gangsters were running the country. And I said to my wife, we're going to be in South Africa about 4 years. Why 4 years? Because all the elements of state had been captured by Zuma and his mobsters. All of them except finance, treasury, media, and the judiciary. When we got back, 2 months later, basically finance and treasury were under the Zuma nest. All that was left protecting us against the state and against state capture were the media and judiciary. Now, the media can be turned off overnight. The government can just say, you're out of business. Boom, close you down. But the judiciary is a lot harder. So you either do what Erdogan did in Turkey, you change the constitution, and within a week, he'd replace 7,000 judges within 1 week, so that all the judicial decisions will go his way. Or you do it judge by judge, which I reckon takes 6 years. And I reckon they were 2 years into that process. I reckon about 30% of the judges in this country are compromised. Decisions will go against the rule of law and in favor of the bad guys. But that's been halted for the time being. So I reckon we had 4 years of this country and then we'd be gone, because there'd be civil unrest, there'd be all sorts of trouble, the game would be over. And then Cyril got elected. But he didn't actually win. Mrs. Nkosazana Dlamini, I hate white people Zuma. And I say that because I know her. She said some really nasty things in private to me. And she's a nasty person. She should have won, but she didn't, because Cyril crossed the floor and did a deal with the devil with David Mabuza. And who knows what he promised him. But Cyril won, and my wife said, what does that mean for us? And I said, we've kicked the can down the road. Economic collapse will happen. Civil unrest's coming. We've probably bought 2 or so years. So I was right, but for the wrong reasons. We've had civil unrest. The police and army were not prepared and not incentivized, in many cases, as Justin pointed out, to protect us. Much of the army and the police has been compromised. And the country is heading towards economic collapse. It cannot be fixed under the ANC. So South Africa is not investable, in my view. Yesterday, it was Martin, I think, who was talking about, immigration. And he said, if you were an alien sitting on a planet with a pile of money and you wanted to allocate it across the world, how much would you allocate to Africa and how much would you allocate to South Africa? The answer to South Africa would be 0. 0. There's no way any foreigner or any foreign direct investment in their right mind would allocate a single cent to South Africa. There's black empowerment. There's over-regulated, laws everywhere. There's, the leftists are forcing CRT on us, and there's diversity, there's ESG. There are all sorts of regulations that make it absolutely uninvestable. Now, I know there's a pool of capital that would love to come into this country, a wall of capital that would come into here, that would come into Zimbabwe, because of people love this country and would like to invest here. But the money's not going to come in on the basis of where we are today. Black empowerment is theft. Expropriation without compensation is theft. Why would anyone invest in this country with those things hanging over our heads? It's uninvestable. Now, it can be fixed. South Africa can be fixed very, very easily. But when was the last time you heard anyone in the ANC talk about the two most important words? Economic growth. Okay? Economic growth. When do they ever say those words? They never use them. They talk about redistribution. They talk about radical economic transformation. They're basically talking about taking away from us and giving to themselves, not the people of South Africa, giving to themselves what they cannot build, grow, or invest themselves. They're incapable of doing it. When you see ministers, cabinet ministers speaking on the television, deep down you're saying, this is not an intelligent person. This is a stupid person. I'll give you an example, okay? And this goes against my investment in an airport in South Africa, okay? Fikile Mbalula. I name names here. Have you heard him speak on television? The guy is not very smart. He's charming. He's polite. You wouldn't hire him for a single position in any business any of you own. And he's our Minister of Transport. And I think he's been in the cabinet since '94. This is a stupid person. And beneath him, and again, this goes against my investment in an airport, you have the Mpofu family, husband and wife, who I happened to meet at a friend of mine's 60th birthday in Durban. He is the lawyer for the EFF. Dali Mpofu, the lawyer for the EFF. She is head of Airports Companies of South Africa. She is the ANC member. He is the EFF member. They hold positions of power. She believes in nationalization of land, mines, and banks. I mean, have you looked up the definition of the word moron in the, okay? Moron is an adult with the average age of 8 to 12 years old, okay? These are the people running this country. Why the hell would anyone invest in this country with people like that running this country? It's an embarrassment. It's an embarrassment. And how many million of people vote for the ANC? That's an embarrassment. Now, our dear friend Musi Maimane yesterday said there are 16 million people that don't vote. That don't vote. If you don't vote, it's a vote for the ANC. Okay? We need those people to get up and vote for anyone but the AFF and ANC, or this country's doomed. If I was put in charge of this country, I could get 10% growth and everybody would have an opportunity to get a job. This thing would take off like a rocket. It's very easy to remove all the restrictions, labor regulations, EWC, BEE, lift it, remove it, money will pour into this country. And the only thing keeping this country alive and above water are the people in this room, the people that get up every morning and make an effort and invest. But in some ways, you're insane. You're still here. And I am too for coming back, you know. Your children, if they finished high school in this country, should be leaving to go overseas, to get a passport, to get experience, to get jobs, to learn how the world works. And if ever South Africa does recover, if ever South Africa does turn around, they can come back. That's my thinking. All 4 of my children have been born overseas. They all have British passports. My older 2 have been educated overseas, and the oldest one is in LA, and he'll never come back to South Africa. The next one's doing business science at UCT. He'll leave the minute he's done. And the younger 2, I doubt, will ever do university in this country because the leftists have taken over the universities here. They're forcing all sorts of left-wing CRT bullshit on my kids. And that's going to be the end of the universities. And if your kids aren't studying real degrees, accounting, law, engineering, medicine, science, IT, engineering, they're wasting their time. Anyone who's studying political science is an idiot. Why do we even offer political science in this country? It's pointless. I'm sorry if any of you studied BA political science anywhere, but don't tell me, it's an embarrassment, okay? So, the truth of the situation is, South Africa is not investable. Any investment longer than probably a 3-year horizon is crazy, including my airport, and including what Warren and I are just about to announce, that we're helping launch Cape Town Stock Exchange, Airport Stock Exchange, Independence. If you look at the cover of the Financial Mail today, very quickly, I know I've got 5 minutes left. So there's an interesting thing that Alec brought up yesterday. He was mentioning some of the successful South Africans abroad. But there's a statistic that I'm looking for very quickly here is, could you name the dollar billionaires that live in South Africa more than 6 months a year? Well, Christo Wiese, Michel Leroux, Stephen Saad. I think Johann Rupert's checked out. I think he's gone. He's as good as financially emigrated. Hasn't said a word for a year. Patrice Motsepe, well, we never hear from him anyway, and he is Cyril's cousin, or Cyril's brother-in-law. He's one of the people that should be saying things, but we don't hear a word. But if you want just an idea of some of the dollar billionaires born in South Africa that live abroad, and I know, Alec, you were trying to throw a few names here, but I've got a nice list here. Here are some examples. The 2 richest people in Los Angeles, number 1 and number 2, are born in South Africa. Elon Musk, Patrick Soon-Shiong. What about Jonathan Baer and Morris Khan in Israel? Both billionaires. They've gone. They both live in Israel. They don't live here anymore. Vincent Mai from the Karoo in New York, one of the greatest hedge fund people, South African. Martin Mashal in Sydney. Mark Shuttleworth, Koos Becker, Nati Kirsch, Manfred Gorvey, all in the UK, all billionaires. Alan Gray and Clive Calder in the Caribbean. Ivan Glazenberg in Lithuania now. Rodney Sachs, Hilton Schlossberg. I can go on and on and on. There are probably 30 South African-born dollar billionaires not living in South Africa and not coming back. They may own a wine farm, they may own a holiday house, they're not coming back. And then there are hundreds of almost billionaires, people worth $100 to $500 to $600 million that you may never have heard of. Have you heard of Pierre Nordair from Worcester? He listed his business Encino on NASDAQ last year for $8 billion US. He doesn't own the whole thing. He's probably worth $600-700 million. Tony Tabatsnik, Michael Lewis, Viv Immerman, Kobus Stoffberg, Roelof Botha was mentioned yesterday, Mick Davis, Robbie Brosen, Robbie Enthoven, Marco Mazzotti, Mark Bristow, Richard Nodder, one of the top 4 guys at Goldman Sachs, Peter Bauer. Anyone heard of Peter Bauer in Boston? Founder of Mimecast, probably worth $300-400 million. I can go on and on and on. These are people that are born in this country, raised in this country, but they're not coming back. Over 4,200 South African dollar millionaires have left the country since 2010, with total private wealth held in the country declining by 25% over the past decade when measured in US dollar terms. Furthermore, a huge number of small and medium-sized businesses have closed down, and the return on the Johannesburg Stock Exchange all-share index is down by 12% over the past decade when measured in US dollars. We are going backwards. This is a spectacular place to live and not a good place to invest or build a business because of the ANC, simply because of the ANC. And I know I've got 2 minutes left, so I'll be quick. I've traveled to 35 of the 55 African countries. I've met 85 of the 100 richest people in Africa. I know that because I had a list and I said, I'm going to go make sure I meet them all. And I've met every single family office that has invested in Africa, and also many who are looking to invest in Africa. And when I look at Africa and when I make my speeches around the world, I say that there are probably 16 or 17 investable countries in Africa, and there are maybe 7 or 8 that I would personally invest in. South Africa is not one of them. South Africa is not even on my list of 18. But yet, I came back, I've made investments, and I've committed myself to this country. So crazy I may be, as crazy as you are to be here today. So finally, a comment before I just throw a few ideas out there. If Nelson Mandela, if Madiba was alive today, he would vote DA. he would not be voting ANC. The ANC in 27 years has achieved almost nothing for the people of South Africa and only achieved for themselves by breaking and stealing. They have broken every state-owned enterprise in this country, and they have stolen this country blind. If any of you believe there is a bad ANC and a good ANC, you are being stupid. There is no good ANC. Cyril is not our savior. There are no good people in that organization, and anyone still voting for the ANC is a moron and does not have this country's interests at heart. I know you all agree with what I'm saying, and I know what I'm saying is highly inflammatory, but it's true, and we all know it. So my thoughts before we run out of time, and if I can have one more minute. Get your kids overseas with foreign passports. Get them educated overseas. They can always come back. When it comes to the basics, and South Africa's really lost the plot when it comes to the basics, at the schooling, at the education level, we should only really focus on the 3 R's: reading, writing, and arithmetic. Anything beyond that at high school clearly is beyond the capabilities of the ANC to deliver to the people. At university, if you're not studying a STEM subject, a hard subject, university is a waste of time. We have too many universities in this country pumping out too many graduates in the arts and rubbish like political science. They should be apprentices. They should learn skills like plumbing and engineering and fixing things and building things. That's our only chance. And one thing that really resonated with me with Musi yesterday when he said there was a rolling thunder of democracy and decent leadership in Africa, starting with Malawi, moving to Zambia, and maybe one day Zimbabwe, and maybe in our dreams, South Africa. Our only hope is the ANC will collapse under its own morally corrupt weight and disappear, and that out of the ashes will come the phoenixes of Musi, Vusi, Herman, and others, and the DA, and FF+, and good organizations like AfriForum that will come out of the ashes and rebuild this country. But it's very sad that we have to look towards economic collapse, civil unrest, and a failure of our society in order to build the country that we have always wanted. And I'm sure most of the people in this room who are my age did not vote for the Nats, and we do not vote for the ANC. When are we going to get the government that we want? And when are we going to have a country that's investable? It certainly isn't today. And let me give the glimmer of hope that's come to me, the little piece of hope. If you are to invest in this country, invest in technology, because technology is the savior of the younger generation and will allow the majority of our people, all of whom will have, in the very near future, a smartphone in their hands, because prices are coming down. This device was going to allow everybody to leapfrog bad governance and ridiculous ANC policies through edutech, health tech, fintech, and regtech, regulation technology. This will be our savior. So if there's a glimmer of hope, it's technology. Thank you.